Thank you so much. That's so beautiful. Our opening words this morning were written by Gwen Matthews and are entitled, "You Contain the Holy." Whoever you are, wherever you are from, whomever you love, whatever it is you have done, you are welcome here. You are welcome to this time, this space, this moment. You are welcome to this time for collective breaths, for words, for music. You are welcome to this moment that we carve out of often busy and chaotic weeks. You are welcome to this time for lighting candles and for us to simply exist here together. And you are invited into worship this morning with these words from Ta-Nehisi Coates. I believed and still do that our bodies are ourselves, that my soul is the voltage conducted through neurons and nerves, and that my spirit is my flesh. Our bodies are ourselves. My soul is the voltage conducted through neurons and nerves. My spirit is my flesh. Wow. Okay, yes. Yes to all of that. The essence that is you, that spark of life, is in your body, is of your body. It is, you are divine. In other words, you contain the holy within you right now. And now I invite you to take a breath as we enter into this time of worship in body, mind, and spirit. And I'll invite Beth up for our time for all ages.
Good morning. Today we're going to hear a folk tale from ancient China. This adaptation is from a book called The Empty Pot by Demi. A long time ago in China, there was a boy named Ping who loved flowers. Anything he planted burst into bloom. Up came flower bushes and even big fruit trees as if by magic. Everyone in the kingdom loved flowers too. They planted them everywhere, and the air smelled like perfume. The emperor of this land loved birds and animals, but flowers most of all, and he tended to his garden every day. But the emperor was getting very old. He needed to choose a successor to the throne. Who would his successor be, and how would the emperor choose? Because the emperor loved flowers so much, he decided to let the flowers choose. The next day, a proclamation was issued. All the children in the land were to come to the palace. There, they would be given a special flower seed by the emperor. Whoever could grow and show the emperor the best flowers in a year's time will be the next emperor. This news created great excitement throughout the land from all over the country. They all swarmed to the palace to get their flower seed. When Ping received his seed from the emperor, he was the happiest child of all. He was sure he could grow the most beautiful flower. Ping filled the flower pot with rich soil. He planted the seed in it very carefully. He watered it every day. He couldn't wait to see it sprout, grow, and blossom into a beautiful flower. But day after day passed, and nothing grew in his pot. Ping was very worried. He put new soil into a bigger pot, and then he transferred the seed into the bigger pot. And 2 months later, he was still waiting. Nothing happened. By and by, the whole year passed. Spring came, and all the children put on their best clothes to greet the emperor. They rushed to the palace with their beautiful flowers, eagerly hoping to be chosen. Ping was ashamed of his empty pot, but his father reminded him, "You did your best, and your best is good enough to present to the emperor." So holding the empty pot in his hands, Ping went to the palace. The emperor was looking at the flowers slowly, one by one. Oh, how beautiful all the flowers were. But the emperor was frowning and didn't say a word. Finally, he came to Ping. Ping hung his head in shame, expecting to be punished. The emperor asked, "Why did you bring me an empty pot?" Ping started to cry and replied, "I planted the seed you gave me, and I watered it every day, but it didn't sprout. I put it in a much better pot with still better soil, and still it didn't sprout. I tended it all year long, but nothing grew. So today, I had to bring you an empty pot without a flower. It was the best I could do." When the emperor heard these words, a smile slowly spread across his face, and he put his arm around Ping. Then he exclaimed to one and all, "I have found him! I have found the one person worthy of being the emperor. Where you all got your seeds, I do not know, for the seeds I gave you had all been cooked, so it was impossible for any of them to grow. I admire Ping's great courage to appear before me with the empty truth, and now I reward him with my entire kingdom and make him emperor of all the land." Ping was proven to be trustworthy, and trust begins with honesty. Ping's courage to present the empty pot shows that doing our best and staying true to what we know matters more than pleasing others, even if it's an emperor. Ping worked hard and cared deeply for his plant, but things just didn't work out. He trusted in himself, and he did the best he could do. And he was rewarded beyond all measure for being true to who he was. As we pass the flame of religious exploration from one generation to the next, I invite Harper to come forward and light the children's chalice. The congregation may remain seated as the children proceed to their classes and sing hymn 413, "Go Now in Peace."
And now I'll ask the congregation to rise and sing with me the call to worship. The words are printed in your order of service. Good morning. Welcome to Buckman Bridge Unitarian Universalist Church. I am Jennifer Bacmeister. My pronouns are she and her, and I will be your worship leader today. It is a lovely morning to worship together, although I hope you brought your umbrellas in. There is a 100% chance of rain by the time we're done this morning. Yeah. Well, I wore my rainbows, though, so you can't have a rainbow without rain. So, whether this is your first UU service with us or you've been a lifelong Unitarian Universalist, I hope you will find, like I have, that UU is a faith that aspires to be truthful, serving, spiritual, and a loving community. We believe that facing and enjoying this real and known world with integrity is preferable to yearning for an imagined and unknown one later on. We believe that we are not sufficient unto ourselves, but are interdependent, that we are called to treat tenderly and justly the entire universe and all forms of life in it. We believe in reason rather than revelation. The beliefs that we hold are not so much revealed to us, but experienced by us. We encourage our children to develop their own working wisdoms instead of their simply inheriting the truths of others, which is why we tell them a story and we send them to their classes. For us, love is not an abstraction or a platitude. Our purpose on earth is not only to discuss love, but to embody it. Welcome, one and all, to our Unitarian Universalist community. We joyfully welcome you, whoever you are, whatever tradition, gender, race, sexual orientation, or age you represent. Through all your days in our presence, may you experience love. If you are interested in learning more about UU in general, or our congregation in particular, please check at the welcome table for information about our Learn About Us classes. A quick reminder to please silence your electronic devices. We encourage our visitors to also stop at the welcome table and get a name tag so that we may get to know you by name. And if you're like me, a chronic name tag loser, you can also get a replacement for your permanent name tag. Everyone is welcome to stay after the services for beverages, refreshments, and fresh, sparkling conversation. We have recently started setting up some chairs in the back so everyone can be included in conversation and snacking. Since we are still learning how to best include everyone, please let Josh or Julie know if you have a need that is not being met during coffee and conversation. We do want to keep widening the circle. I'd like to now invite our song leaders to come forward and invite everybody to rise in body or spirit to sing our opening hymn, number 124, Be That Guide. I have lots of song leaders this morning. That's great. As a creedless faith, the members of this church are joined together in a covenantal relationship, which we individually and collectively enter into with intention. Each Unitarian Universalist congregation chooses how they will express their vision of covenant. Each Sunday, we speak the words of our covenant together, both as a reminder and an expression of our faith in our fellow congregants. The words are printed in your order of service. Please recite them with me. We covenant to engage one another with honesty, kindness, and respect, to value diversity, seek understanding of our differences, and practice gracious accountability with care, love, and empathy. We make these promises to those who are here and those yet to come, so that we may be a safe, welcoming, and beloved community of acceptance, learning, and transformation. I'd like to invite Valerie Buffard forward to light our chalice this morning. March 31st, tomorrow, is the annual International Transgender Day of Visibility, founded in 2009 to acknowledge successes and celebrate living members of the transgender community. I have chosen a poem for our chalice lighting this morning, written by Joshua Jennifer Espinoza. You can light it, Valerie. I didn't warn Valerie this was a little longer than normal. Joshua Jennifer Espinoza, a trans woman poet. Now, I'll warn you, it has nothing to do with chalices or lighting things or even fire, but it is wonderfully quirky and yet deep at the same time. If you like poetry, check out her work. This poem is published on the Academy of American Poets website, which I found out also has a poem of the day you can sign up for. They'll email it to you. It's wonderful. The name of the poem is called "The Moon is Trans." Valerie, if you want to sit down, you can. I didn't warn you, sorry. "The Moon is Trans" by Joshua Jennifer Espinoza. The moon is trans. From this moment forward, the moon is trans. You don't get to write about the moon anymore unless you respect that. You don't get to talk to the moon anymore unless you use her correct pronouns. You don't get to send men to the moon anymore unless their job is to bow down before her and apologize for the sins of the earth. She is waiting for you, pulling at you softly, telling you to shut up already, please. Scientists theorize the moon was once a part of the earth that broke off when another planet struck it. Eve came from Adam's rib, etc. Do you believe in the power of not listening to the inside of your own head? I believe in the power of you not listening to the inside of your own head. This is all upside down. We should be talking about the ways that blood is similar to the part of outer space between the earth and the moon, but we're busy drawing it instead. The moon is often described as dead, though she is very much alive. The moon has not known the feeling of not wanting to be dead for any extended period of time in all of her existence, but she is not delicate and she is not weak. She is constantly moving away from you, the only way she can. She never turns her face from you because of what you might do. She will outlive everything you know.
Good morning, my BBUC family. It's good to be back with you. I don't know if you know how touching it is for me to come in and have so many of you come up to me and say, we missed you. We're so glad to have you back. It means the world to me, and I truly appreciate it. On top of that, one of the other things that I so love about this congregation are the lessons that you plan out, and they always throw me for a curve. I am always looking to find music that's appropriate and also that reinforces the message that's being given for that day. And so I saw the title for this message, and I thought, a good piece would be This Little Light of Mine. I thought that would be a great piece. And so I went looking for it, and most of the versions I'm used to hearing are sort of like nice, slow, methodical, spiritual. But this arrangement I found was sort of unique in that it sort of starts out nice and slow like you're expecting, but then it goes a little crazy. And so what I was thinking was that it's one of those things that, some of you, Lent may have come up on you faster than you expected, and you totally missed Mardi Gras. And so I thought this piece would be a great piece for those of you that missed Mardi Gras, so that you would get a little taste of Nolans, and, it may not get you to the point of feeling that gumbo on your tongue, but hopefully it will uplift you and give you that little taste. It may send you running home to find your colored beads instead of clutching your pearls. And so I'm hoping that you'll truly enjoy this piece. One of the things that I must have to say, that Gary and I were rehearsing this yesterday, and I started hearing things from the piano, and I was like, well, he's like gone into ragtime, and now he's gone into a slow blues, and I thought I probably should stop him before he starts going into disco. And so and so if you happen, you may want to warm up your hands. If you happen to see Gary, his eyes glassing over and maybe a little drool coming from his mouth, then you may want to lay hands on him, because once again, he's got the Spirit. This Little Light of Mine.
If y'all were here last week, you heard me talk about some serendipity and how when we put services together, we don't always talk to each other. The church has a subscription that helps us with elements for programming and services, and one of those elements is picking songs to put together, and we get a list of songs that are in the hymnal that might work together with the topic of trust, which is what we're talking about in the sermons. And the two songs that these guys picked to play, Be Thou My Vision and This Little Light of Mine, are both on that list, and they did not know that. So there's greater forces than we're aware of at work around us, and that makes me feel good. As in many other churches, well, they feel good, but this is another topic. Moving on. As in many other churches, each week we accept an offering. It's good to remind ourselves from time to time that the offering is symbolic as well as practical. We know that it is through pledges and donations that we build our budget and fund our programs and ministries, pay our staff, finance the comfort and beauty of our buildings and grounds. And we know that we could easily submit those pledge checks to the church at any convenient time. We have a QR code in our order of service, a link on our website, and you can even just draft a recurring electronic payment from your account. Just set it and forget it. But we pass the plate during our worship service to make a community expression of thanks for the blessings of abundance, to visibly bring in the harvest, so to speak, at this, our most cherished hour of our week. Our offering says that the act of giving is as essential to our spiritual well-being as anything else we do here on Sunday mornings. So even if during this ritual, your offering is only symbolic, please take the plate and pass it to your neighbor. Our offertory ushers will help us cross the aisles. Bruce Peterson and Ron Furster will now come forward to gather the offering. And at the completion of the offering, please rise in body or spirit and join in singing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. Our reading this morning was written by Sam Parker Dennison and is called Letter from Our Better Angels. Dear one, we have received your letter, and we hate to tell you, well, not hate so much, but are a bit afraid to say, we cannot grant your requests as stated, but can only remind you of a few familiar things. First, faith. Faith in yourself and trust in others. We know it can be terrifying to be vulnerable, but only when you share your softest side will we be able to break through. Next, hope. Hope is not an empty fairy tale. It is the true story of all the times human beings, like you, have found a way to create the future, though you didn't know how. And of course, love. Love that demands you cherish all people, not just yourself and safety. Love that is not satisfied until every argument ends abruptly when one child says, "That hurts." There is so much to learn and relearn. The world teaches you to be hard, to negotiate and defend, to avoid giving too much and to the wrong people. There are no wrong people. You also are not wrong. And when you encounter the poor, the broken, the unhoused and unwelcome, you are looking, if you pay attention, at us, calling you to answer your own prayers. If you want to change the world first, be sure you are changing yourself. Be tender, be kind, be at peace. Be all the things you wish for. Be your own better self. It isn't without cost, but it will be free. I'd now like to turn the pulpit over to Kris Kines.
Hello, everyone. Last week, Jennifer said something that she thought maybe we might all be closeted Buddhists or something to that effect. And when I read this sermon, I was like, boy, she really was right on target. The title of today's sermon is Buddhist Perspectives on Faith, Trusting the Light Within, by the Reverend Dr. Tess Baumberger. You can read more about Reverend Baumberger in the order of service. Each summer before the General Assembly, a gathering of Unitarian Universalists from around the world meet for professional days. These days include a workshop with a major presenter, smaller workshops, schmoozing opportunities, and business meetings for ministers, religious educators, musicians, and church administrators. Back in 2006, the presenter for the big workshop was Sharon Salzberg, a Buddhist meditation teacher who co-founded Insight Meditation Society and the Barr Center for Buddhist Studies in Barr, Massachusetts. She talked about her book titled Faith, Trusting Your Own Deepest Experience. Miss Salzberg was delightful, wise, wonderful, and very funny. So, of course, I ran right out and bought her book. Though her sense of humor doesn't come through as clearly as it does in person, it is a gem. I highly recommend it, whether your leanings are towards Buddhism or bends in other directions. This sermon draws heavily on both her presentation and her book. Ms. Salzberg starts out by saying that redeeming the word faith is one of the key challenges of our time. For many in our country, faith means what the religious right and the media they own and operate tell us it means. Anyone whose religious views are to the center or left of that definition might want to chuck the word faith out altogether. However, I prefer Ms. Salzberg's approach. Let us create our own definition for and redeem that word for ourselves. The thing that most struck me about her presentation and her book was the idea, from a Buddhist perspective, that faith is a verb rather than a noun. Faith isn't a commodity we possess, Salzburg says. It is an unfolding process of the heart that grows and deepens all the time. We don't have faith, we faith. That's faith with an E on the end. In her book, Salzburg draws on her own deepest personal experiences to show how this process of faithing, trusting the light within, trusting our capacity for love, wisdom, and awareness, can draw us through hard times. Salzburg's story is a sad one. Her father disappeared when she was 4. After her mother died when she was 9, she went to live with grandparents she barely knew, who rarely even mentioned her mother. Her father reappeared in her life, but his mental health problems interfered with his ability to be a real parent to her. In fact, in some ways, she had to play parent to him. As a young adult, her interest in religion led her to India and ultimately to a Buddhist meditation teacher. She even sat under the descendant of the same tree where the Buddha sat when he experienced enlightenment. This proved to be a life-changing event for her. From that point, she began, through daily meditation practices and embracing Buddhist teachings, to build a faith in her own capacity to change her life through love and awareness. In order to redefine the word faith, Salzburg looks at the word in Pali, which is the language of the original Buddhist text. The Pali word, translated as faith, confidence, or trust, is saddha, which literally means to place the heart upon. She says that saddha is the willingness to take the first step on a new journey, even when you don't know the destination. The real point is setting forth. The first step in the journey of faithing, according to Buddhism, is recognizing that everything within us and around us is always moving onward to something else. Using our loving awareness, we draw near the truth of the present moment, even as it changes, pulling us onward to the next moment. One basic Buddhist belief is that suffering is part of life. It can seem like this big, clunky thing that sits on us and never changes, and so will never go away. Seeing suffering in this way can lead to despair, as it nearly did for Miss Salzburg when, later in life, she discovered the memory of the night her mother died. By practicing loving awareness of the present moment through regular meditation, she was able to see that her suffering contained many emotional components that were always changing. She says, this is like what a musicologist would call unpacking the chord, finding the notes that make up the music of her grief. It helped her to recognize that her suffering was made up of these evolving components of anger, fear, and pain. This helped her to see that her suffering was not some big, unchanging, horrendous thing, but something that was already changing. She began to see the gaps within her suffering that gave her hope that it would diminish. Not only that, she began to see that she had the ability to change the repeating patterns of suffering in her life. Salzburg says this definition of faith is not smarmy. It does not say that events around us will be all right because we can't know how events will unfold. The final destination is not clear most of the time. This type of faith can also, she writes, allow us to recognize and trust the helping hands stretched toward us. It enables us to aspire to a better life than we have inherited, Miss Salzburg decided as a young adult to place her heart upon the teachings of the Buddha. From there, she journeyed through the 3 stages of faith laid out in Buddhist tradition. The first stage of faithing in Buddhism is called bright faith and is akin to falling in love. She says it's like we've lived our lives feeling constrained when suddenly the door swings open and the sense of self we've always carried around with us no longer imprisons us. It is dazzling. She describes bright faith as a state of love-filled delights and eager joy at the prospect of actualizing them. Bright faith goes beyond claiming these possibilities to immersing yourself in them, beginning to act on your potential. Salzburg is quick to distinguish bright faith from blind faith. Both tend to be inspired by something or someone outside ourselves. Unlike blind faith, which is an unquestioning devotion to a teacher or a teaching, bright faith is the beginning of a journey that must include a great deal of questioning. Bright faith rejects what is called a guru mentality, an unwillingness to question. Bright faith, unlike blind faith, does not ask us to check our brains at the door, a favorite saying among Unitarian Universalism. But it does require us to surrender cynicism and apathy, to believe in and to begin working for change. Its energy pushes us forward in a journey of awareness, wisdom, and compassion. The Buddhist tradition teaches that after bright faith, we enter into verifying faith. On the journey, we must learn to base our faith on our own experience with eyes wide open, as Salzburg puts it. This forces us to challenge, to lose, and ultimately to deepen our faith. Our faith journey can end after bright faith if we are not willing to go deeper by refining our bright faith through some very hard work. We need to transform inspiration into effort, she says, or our faith will remain immature. We need to test anything we're told against our own experience of the truth. Like the next stage of falling in love, we need to examine that upon which we have placed our hearts very closely. Placing one's heart is a powerful thing, and to respect that power, we need to be intent and aware of what we are doing. Now, in some traditions, doubting or questioning one's faith is seen as a problem or a failing. In fact, counseling the doubtful is included in one tradition's list of spiritual acts of mercy. However, in Buddhism, as in our own tradition, faith grows as we question what we're told, as we put teachings into practice in our lives and look at the results. Salzburg quotes the Buddha himself, who said, quote, "Don't believe anything just because I have said it. Don't believe anything just because an elder or someone you respect has said it. Put it into practice. See for yourself if it is true. If you find that it leads to a kind of wisdom that is like looking at a wall and the wall breaks open and you see in a more unbounded way, then you can trust it." End quote. One of the things that most appealed to me about our faith, about Unitarian Universalism, when I first discovered it, was that my questions and doubts were welcomed and encouraged. We have a bright faith experience too. People who first discover our faith have that brightness to them. Salzburg warns that if we fail to question our faith, that on which we place our hearts, bright faith can become blind faith, dogmatic, fundamentalist. So the phase of verifying faith is crucial in our development. To make the most of the verifying faith stage, Salzburg says that we need to practice skillful doubt. She goes on to say, skillful doubt is, quote, a sincere, critical questioning combined with deep trust in our own right and ability to discern the truth, end quote. Skillful doubt requires being close enough to care about an issue and yet open enough to let the questioning come alive. It asks us to trust our faith enough to question it skillfully. Buddhism teaches that there is another type of doubt that can stop the faith journey dead in its tracks. This is what they call unskillful doubt or walk-away doubt. Unskillful doubt is simply cynicism, a stance that allows us to feel smug and unthreatened without really becoming involved. It is doubt without due investigation of the object of the doubt or of the faith. Salzburg suggests some skillful doubt questions. They include asking about each belief. Can it transform my mind? Can it help reshape my pain into wisdom and love? Does my experience match the belief system? If not, then let it go. If so, then explore more deeply. Faithing then becomes an open, active state of wonder which inspires us to explore. As we immerse ourselves in the stage of verifying faith, Buddhism teaches we gradually come to the third stage of abiding or unwavering faith in our deepest experience. In abiding faith, we have tested something so deeply we are living it. Salzburg writes, abiding faith does not depend on borrowed concepts. Rather, it is the magnetic force of a bone-deep, lived understanding, one that draws us to realize our ideals, walk our talk, and act in accord with what we know to be true. In abiding faith, we place our hearts upon what Paul Tillich calls ultimate concern, the glue that holds together the pieces of our experience. Each of us may have a different ultimate concern. For some, it may be justice. For others, it may be compassion. For some, ultimate concern might be a faith in a divine power. And for others, it might be a faith in the laws of nature. For Buddhists, the ultimate concern is our Buddha nature, the capacity to live our lives in love, compassion, and awareness, a capacity that nothing can destroy. As we place our hearts upon our ultimate concern, as we faith our lives around that commitment, we begin to let go of the destination and trust ourselves in the journey. Salzburg quotes Alan Watts, who says, "Belief clings, faith lets go." In addition to teaching that life within and around us is always changing, Buddhism teaches that everything is deeply connected. Buddhists believe that we have all died and been reborn countless times, so that at some point we have been each other's mothers, fathers, children, students, teachers, friends, lovers, enemies. We have all loved and hurt one another. We have all shared laughter and tears. We have all already reminded one another to breathe, to faith. For me, we can see the same deep sense of personal connection in our faith community. Whether or not we believe in this kind of death and rebirth, over time, here in this congregation, we have acted in all sorts of roles. We have given, we have received, we have wondered with the wonder of childhood, we have advised with the wisdom of old age. Over time spent in loving community, the experiences we share build those bonds that comfort and sustain us. Miss Salzberg talks about this power of faith community in relation to the time when she nearly fell into despair, which she sees quite rightly as the opposite of faith. In her time of deepest despair, it was the faith of others that helped pull her through. It was not only their faith in the process that helped, but also their faith in her capacity to move through her own suffering. Holding on to this kind of belief in her and their loving support of her, she was able to use the tools she'd learned to move through her time of suffering. This is a definition of counseling the doubtful that I can support. She relates an experience of walking a labyrinth during that period of her life. At times, she found herself close to the center, the goal, but then the path would lead her away again out towards the edge. Yet all the time, whether close to the goal or far away, the labyrinth path, she was always moving toward the center. This is a comforting thought that always we move, even if we feel our path is taking us to the outer edges. Even when we cannot see it, each step is actually taking us closer to the center, to the goal. With each step we faith, placing our hearts upon the ideal and trusting in our own deepest experience and the helping hands around us to take us where we need to be, this understanding of faith is one I can embrace. It walks the middle road between cynicism and unquestioning acceptance. It is the path of skillful doubt that can lead us to faith in an abiding way. This definition of faith says that we should cherish our doubts because done skillfully, doubting can take us to deeper faithing. Practicing skillful doubt can take us into an abiding sense of trust in ourselves and in one another as we faith together. So may it be. Namaste. The Reverend Dr. Tess Baumberger.
I would like to invite the song leaders back up. Our closing hymn is number 324, Where My Free Spirit Onward Leads. Not leaves, leads. Please rise in body or spirit for the hymn and remain standing for the benediction and the extinguishing of the chalice. Valerie, if you'd please come back up to the chancel. I promise the closing is shorter than the opening. The closing words were written by the Reverend Scott Taylor based on the words of Martin Luther King's words, "Faith is taking the first step even when you can't see the whole staircase." The poem is, "Go with faith, not the kind that is called to move mountains, but the quieter sort that calls us to take the first step even when the whole staircase sits beyond our view. As we stride toward the unseen, may we notice that the way unfolds only as we risk traveling it. And may we remember and trust that none of these steps are ones we take alone. Amen. Blessed be. Go in peace. And let's eat some pizza.